Good evening. I'm here to oppose this item. Not only is Keyan a respected colleague and friend, but we have already wasted far too many life minutes, of which Black and Indigenous people have far too few, on this silly, frankly retaliatory, and illegal procedure. The rules and procedures that are passed by this body are not laws, and they certainly do not preempt federal law, which affords us a right to free speech. And I think most of you know I don't usually do this, but my name is Dr. Flojan Kofer, and I am a public health expert, and so I'm qualified to talk to you about racism. Institutional racism is policies and procedures that disproportionately impact people by race, often, though not exclusively, by design. What that means is that when this body assembles and decides to strip ad hocs of their ability to do the work that's under question tonight, when this body assembles and decides to oppose rent control, which disproportionately impacts Black and Indigenous women, when this body assembles to oppose, or when some of these members, including Councilmember Harris, oppose Measure L, which is soundly supported by young people of color because it will invest in their communities, when you refuse to state the land acknowledgement, when you then insist on stating the Pledge of Allegiance, which only came about in response to Christopher Columbus's 400th anniversary of terrorism, that is racism because it is a policy that you are passing that disproportionately harms people. And so Jim Crow, since it is a policy which also does that, therefore is not slander to say that those behaviors are as racist as Jim Crow, because that is a fact. So I stand before you here today to say it may hurt your feelings, it may hurt the feelings of our police officers, but that's not policy. And I also would like to say, if you'd like to be productive, we can talk about the lack of decorum from members of this council.
Your comment, your time is complete. Will you make your final comment, please?
This is a waste of time.
Your comments, your time is complete. Our next speaker.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Kula Koenig, and I'm just calling to say that Jeff Harris, you got some fucking nerve. And I'm not about to tell you about how great Keyan is. I'm going to tell you about yourself. On September 19th, the Social Justice Politico wrote an article, or a side-eye piece called The Gall of Jeff Harris, in which we talked about the op-ed that you wrote opposing an end to cash bail, not considering the amount of Black people who are disproportionately in this unjust criminal system. You talked about how if you took people out of jail, they would just be out on the streets and be all on drugs. You talked about unhoused people being on drugs, hearkening back to the war on drugs, using the police to sweep folks on the streets, those folks who are disproportionately Black folks. So yes, that is some racist ass shit, and that's why Keyan said what he said. But I want this whole council, how is this thing even on consent? Like, that you gonna take somebody out of their position? That's on consent. That's consent to me means it's not controversial. I've also been watching what's been happening at the LA City Council, and you know what? I don't want no performative ass shit from y'all. So in LA City Council, they had a redistricting commission that gave them all recommendations, and they didn't do nothing, right? You have a police review commission that is working hard, that has given you recommendations, and you ain't do nothing. So I wonder if Katie or Mike, because I know she would have, hadn't pulled this shit off consent, who would have pulled it off consent? I don't want to hear no performative shit. If y'all gonna have a commission, then listen to them. Stop wasting people's time. We should not have been on hold for the past 3 hours. I could have been at my kid's soccer practice right now. Instead of coming have to tell you about Keyan Bliss. I'm done.
Ms. Mackenzie Wilson, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm a community organizer here in Sacramento. I come to teach you something that I know most of you are unaware of. It's apparent by your rules and procedures that try to protect you from any uncomfortability, accountability, and personal responsibility as you unleash state-sponsored violence on this community. Dissent develops democracy, and your lack of understanding that brings me to bring you a lesson on social change and decorum. You see, decorum is afforded to you in society by means of social contracts, through voluntary agreements sometimes, but in this economy and society, mostly by force. You can see it when almost every decision we make daily is based on our ability to afford our survival. Even our ability to participate in this democracy is if we can afford it, whether that's the transportation, the parking, the phone, the internet. And this space in particular has actively worked to disenfranchise people's ability to participate, let alone show dissent. And as this space continues to cop for capitalism in the name of democracy and continue to wield state violence on those who can't afford your society, you break the social contract that affords you decorum. I mean, it's been broken. The number of people living outside, those a paycheck away, number of black and brown and poor bodies dying at the hands of law enforcement, no education funding, lack of housing, food access, mental health, substance use services. I could go on and on about the things that this democracy has defunded while beefing up the budgets of the palace guards, their jails, and the weapons to enforce your decorum with. The real question is who holds you to an account? Who holds you accountable to a form of decorum as you continue to break the social contracts? Us, that's who. And as an analyst of social change, I'm here to remind you of advancements throughout the years. In the 1920s, the riots and strikes led to the creation of social but racist capitalist policies that brought us things like public housing, racist Fannie Mae loans, public schools, roads, libraries. 1960s and 70s, marches and disruptions of your spaces led us to civil rights movements. Recently, throwing decorum out the window in 2018 and demands of accountability of cops to their terror and violence brought us the Police Review Commission. So simply, I am done, you need to get over it and be willing to be held accountable. It's the only way to be a part of the transformational changes needed in society, because I want to remind you that behind every major advancement...
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker.
My name is Michael Angelo Garcel, for the record. So I moved to Sacramento about a year and a half ago. I moved here from Tallahassee, Florida, where I went to college at Florida State. So you can say I know a thing or two about Jim Crow, considering that it is in full force back in my home state. And I'll let you know, the rhetoric of Jeff Harris is nothing like I haven't seen before. Jim Crow historically has kept black people oppressed, it has kept brown people oppressed, it has made sure that the colonization of Native Americans in this country has been the most successful genocide in the history of the planet. And now you're trying to keep one of the few black people that you have in power away from a position that keeps the police accountable. It's one of their values. It is one of the tenets of the police department. And you're saying that accountability is hurting a white man's feelings, and now you're trying to get rid of him? I see one black man here. One black man on the entire city council with how diverse Sacramento is, man. This is a joke. It's hard to put into words the disappointment I've experienced with the state of California. I moved over here thinking that things were gonna be better. I moved over here thinking that hopefully this wouldn't be like the rest of the country. But you guys have a completely different form of racism over here. You guys keep it really quiet. In the South, I've been beat. I have been called the N-word countless times for being black. I am Cuban. I have native blood. I have Latino blood. I have black blood in my system. And now you're telling me that over here, you claim to be the most progressive state in the country, and then you're killing our people silently. You're poisoning our water supplies. You're killing us with your accountability comes from the public trust, and the
Thank you
public
for your
really has
comments.
no
Your time
trust
is
in the police
complete.
right
Will
now.
you make your final
Thank you.
comment, please? Thank you.